I'm Dylan Ratigan. I've interviewed nearly every CEO and most world leaders during the past 25 years. And now on Bootstrapping, I'm turning my attention to the new CEOs and the irrepressible entrepreneurs leading the next generation of innovation in the world. Welcome back to Tasty Live. I am Dylan Ratigan. Time for another episode of Bootstrapping. My guest, Dan Rutstein, the big boss in Orange County at the Orange County Soccer Club, which I saw a bunch of superlatives with this, or sort of size and scope, but this is the only professional soccer club in Orange County, correct?
Yes, it is. We're called Orange County Soccer Club, and we're the only professional soccer team there. Although in that geographic area, in probably every other country where football is played or soccer is played, there'd probably be space for about 30 or 40 professional teams, but we're the only one in that space at the moment.
Got it. And then because Los Angeles has professional soccer teams.
Yeah, so there's two MLS teams in Los Angeles, and we play in the USL, which is the one division below the MLS. So
and how many teams are in the league you're in your league?
So it's a national league. So there's 26 teams in the league split into two conferences. So it sort of mirrors how the MLS works in terms of the timing of the season and the geographic spread. So our Western Conference, we travel all over sort of broadly the western side of the US, although it sort of stretches a bit across to Memphis. But then we will do games cross conference, and we'll travel to places like Hartford and Miami and play games as well.
Mm-hmm. And the players are a combination of hot kids that are going to go to the MLS, veterans who are hanging in there, and everything in between. I mean, is it a feeder for the MLS, or is it a different world?
So it's a slightly different world. So it's fully professional. I would say a team are made up in thirds. So a third of the players have played MLS.
Right.
So we've got a former MLS Rookie of the Year. We've got a couple of guys who've played for the LA Galaxy. A third of the players have actually come from Europe. So they've played in the top divisions in Europe for European teams. Okay. So we've got players who've played in Denmark, in Norway. We've had a guy who was playing at Chelsea. So good standard of sort of European player.
Oh, yeah. Better probably.
And then the other third, yeah, I think that's right. And then the other third is young American players. And our model actually is we're fully independent, but a big part of our business is around selling players. So when we develop a young player, rather than sort of them going up to the MLS or going off to college, we actually sell them to European teams. So we've sold 6 players to European teams, which is more than any other team.
So slow down. So let's say I've got a kid, a soccer star kid.
Yeah.
And you guys see him, somebody in your, or one of the, whatever, they're like, this kid's great. And you guys will decide, okay, we're going to cultivate this kid. And then if the kid has success as a young man in the league, we'll basically own the rights to sell that talent to the European leagues.
That is exactly right, Dylan. So obviously in American sport, the teams trade for draft picks or salary cap or who knows what. Soccer as a global business is a multi-billion-dollar market for transfer.
The biggest.
And America's never really fully participated in that.
Because never will. It's the same as it's like inches, centimeters. It's cultural. I can't help you. Okay. Like they're not going to do it.
No, indeed. And so we've realized that there's a real sort of, it's almost
compared to Paris or Milan or Barcelona. I mean, come on. Frankfurt.
Yeah. From your background, you'd see this as an arbitrage opportunity. So there's an asymmetric information problem. People don't realize how good these players are or that there's value in them. So we've recruited players from MLS academies. They've come to us on the promise that they can play grown-up men's football against other men in a competitive league in front of real crowds of thousands of people, not just in a reserve team or going to college. And that's what European teams want. And so we've sold players to Rangers, the Scottish, one of the best teams in Scotland. We've sold them to Feyenoord, the Dutch champions. So we've got players who we're moving on. So you look at the likes of Christian
So then
Pulisic.
what are the other revenue sources for that allow you to run a business like this that's not at a substantial loss? That the creative that everything else seems lovely. I'm interested how you turn this activity into something that pays for itself, let alone is profitable.
Yeah, so I think that, obviously all sports teams have the traditional revenue sources of ticket sales, sponsorship, merchandise, concessions at the stadium. So obviously we
So
have
you have
all
a
of
deal in
those.
Irvine where you have a piece of the action at whatever happens at Irvine at that stadium.
Yeah, so we just signed a new 10-year deal to our stadium, which allows us to do various things, including sell naming rights for the stadium, run concessions
Right.
differently. So
More equity in the stadium if you can put people in the seats.
absolutely. So there's all those traditional revenue sources. And then we've effectively got this fifth quarter, which is the player transfer sale. So last year we did somewhere between 10 and 20% of our revenue was from player transfers. So these players are going for a few 100,000. But the way the international transfer market works is the first sale, particularly for a young player, particularly from somewhere slightly unknown like America, would be in
Questionable stock. Questionable stock.
definitely changing.
If you're in Germany, it's questionable. I don't know.
They're seeing it differently now, but it's still a risk. So the first
Even just
transfer,
culturally, even if athletically they may be fabulous, but culturally, anay, I'm sure
yeah,
it's
and so just on that, you are right. So we actually our sporting director, who's British, and his predecessor was Swiss. They really understand the European model, and a big part of our player development is how do we develop the players, as you say, athletically. And a lot of young Americans have got real natural talent,
incredible.
but actually teaching them how to be a grown up in a dressing room.
A
So in a lot,
culture like
so
look at Ronaldo or Messi. I mean, the biggest athletic stars on earth are very gracious in public, always.
yeah, and there's a lot of time we spend developing the players so that we teach them how to go on trial. We teach them when they're having meetings with scouts or senior sort of technical people from these European clubs, how to conduct themselves, how to behave in a European locker room. That sort of soft,
What is the
non-playing
feel?
has real value.
Yeah. Well, the thought that occurs to me, there's a documentary about when the wall came down in Russia and they started bringing Russian hockey players who were the best hockey players and the best hockey team in the world to the NHL. And we would bring one at a time, one to the Rangers, and it would be terrible. Locker rooms terrible. They don't. Americans and the Russians and the Canadians all hate each other, but they all hate the Russian. No, they don't play the same style. Blah blah blah. And one of the team owners, this guy, I don't remember his name, but he owned the Detroit Red Wings. And he said the only way to do this is to bring if you can't bring one Russian, you can't bring the best Russian and put them with an American and Canadian pro hockey team. It won't work. But you can take 6 or 8 of the best Russians and bring all of them and make a hockey team. And so I do wonder if you could bring groups, 3 kids from Orange County together, to like whether they do well socially because they're from the same, even if it's foreign stock.
I think that's part of it. I mean, part of the way we develop the players is deliberately around giving them the best chance of succeeding on and off the field. So, we sold a player to a French team and we worked really hard with and explained to him, you've got to go there and not do the sort of American tourist thing. Go there and actually learn French, become part of the culture, understand their game. And that's how you'll really make it there. So we spend a lot of time trying to develop them because the real value, it's not the first transfer, it's the proportion you get of the second transfer. So the way these contracts are set up, you tend to get maybe 10 to 20% of the second transfer. And the teams we're selling players to are the sort of teams who are then selling players on to the really big names.
No, yeah, that's your outside call. That's your way deep out of the money call options. But if these guys perform, everybody has really good economics, including you.
Yeah, so it could be 15 to 20% of 10, 20, 30 million. That starts really moving the dial.
Exactly.
That's a lot of hot dogs you'd have to sell to match that.
Yeah. But whose idea was this?
So the owner, James Kester, when he bought the club. He at one stage had rights to an MLS team, but he ended up buying this club. And part of the attraction for him is the way it works in the USL and the independent nature of the clubs. Is we get to keep all this revenue. And he realised, and he paired with a gentleman called Oliver Wies, who had worked as an agent and as a coach, and then as our sporting director. The two of them realised there's opportunity with this asymmetric information that, we're in Southern California. We've got the highest proportion of young players playing football. Let's take them and let's offer them to European teams. And it's become effectively a conveyor belt. And when you sell one, we're recruiting players off the back. They know the
Of
deal.
course. No, it makes the league relevant, not for the celebrity of American soccer stardom, but as a launch pad for global soccer stardom.
100%. And we've had the United States under 18, under 20, and under 21 captains playing for us. So these are the players who are going to be playing maybe in the next World Cup, maybe the one after for the US national team. They've all been in our system.
Oh, and what are the motivations? Are the motivations of the other ownerships of the other teams in your league similar to yours, or is your model unique to your team only?
So it has been unique to us. So we were the pioneers of this model, and I think there was a view, even I think from the league at the beginning, they sort of said, just sell hot dogs. Don't worry about this trying to sell players thing. It's not how it works in America. But our ownership group saw it differently. And I think once we started selling players and you start seeing the revenue opportunities, I think some of the other teams have realized this is a great business model, to the point where actually the league itself just recruited our sporting director to become sporting director for the whole league, to try and help the other teams with this way forward. Because actually, if America's going to be a serious soccer nation, they've got to play the soccer game, which is international.
On the biggest stage, which is not in North America.
No, look, MLS is very good for MLS owners. That's the model in the way that the NFL is and Major League Baseball.
Right. It's US pro sports culture.
Yeah. But, MLS is not incentivized for the US national team to win the World Cup or for young players to go and play in Europe. That's almost the opposite of what MLS wants.
No, but that's why this is such an interesting use of the resources, because you get the pleasure of, of all the aspects of the lifestyle associated with a sports life, if that's what you want, along with this sort of this cultivation aspect that's a little bit. So then why are you raising money?
So it's a great question. So we're raising the moment, and it's for a couple of different reasons. So there's one part which is a traditional capital raise, which is about bringing in outside money to enable us to do additional development of young players, to give them the opportunity to move across.
And you want to hire more people, more scouts, more recruits, more more surveillance and attention to more players at younger ages.
It's less about the scouting. It's more about how can we really maximize the sort of opportunities for the players, additional coaches for those players,
more support for the players.
Exactly, to really enable us to keep doing this the way we're doing it and expand it. And there's also some other elements, including now we've got the new stadium deal. We started last year, we sold out 8 of our games. So we're looking at maybe some stadium improvements as well. So there's another part which is around that part. So there's, it's a traditional capital raise to really focus on those two areas. But there's a third part to it, which is fan engagement. So, since we launched the raise we're using Republic, so the sort of crowd-based community raise, and we've got nearly 1,000 new owners of the club. Now, about 25% are our core fans who want to not just have season tickets, but now own a piece of it. But actually, we're finding we've had people from all over the country, if not all over the world, who just, they see what we're doing, and soccer's growing. People love soccer now, and I think people want to be able to.
Oh yeah, everybody plays soccer. It's the most played sport in America. It's just cultural at the pro level. It's crazy, but
absolutely. And I think people want to be part of it, and this is a unique way to be able to, whether you're putting in $100 and going to the pub and telling your friends you own a soccer team, or you're putting in tens of thousands of dollars because you realize that there's real growth opportunity in the game in this country, particularly with a team who've got a unique transfer model. So it's one part capital raise and one part sort of engaging,
expanding the partnership to the fan base.
Yeah, I mean, everybody in America knows about the Green Bay Packers, and everyone who's a Green Bay Packers owner will tell you pretty quickly that they're a Green Bay Packers owner. And I think there's an element of that. This is the same principle, except there's actually a real return at the end of this. While
Mm-hmm.
the Green Bay Packers is more, just a chance to tell people you've got it.
Mm-hmm. And how long have you been doing this? It's my last question, I guess.
Uh, as in this
How long has the
model.
team existed? How long has this model existed? How many players have come through it?
So the club was 10 years old last year, which in global football terms, where there's British clubs who are 100 years old, is not obviously that old. But in American terms, where these leagues have been churning and the teams have been churning, there's something about getting to 10 years. We started this model when the owner bought the team in 2016. So it's been about 7 years of this idea, this principle. And during that time, we've sold 6 players to 6 different top European leagues. And I say that's more players have gone from us to Europe than even MLS teams. And I think as these players get their time in Europe, you'll start seeing more players are going. We're recruiting young players now. We've got one of the most talented 17-year-olds in the country who's come to us because he wants to follow these other players who've gone. And I think there'll be more of that to come. And the real value will be, as I say, when these players make their second move.
The next
That's
10 years, as the magnet becomes more powerful and the secondary trades come online.
They do, and soccer just keeps growing in America. So in some ways, our core business can continue to expand because between We Are Wrexham, Ted Lasso, Lionel Messi playing at Inter Miami, and the World Cup being in America in 2026, soccer's not going to shrink. It's just going to keep growing. They say it's going to overtake hockey soon. I'm sure that might be right in the next 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations. I thought that's a fascinating business and idea. I appreciate your taking the time to explain the whole thing, Dan.
Of course, and thanks for your time, Dylan.
Yeah, Dan Rutstein, Orange County Soccer Club. Is that the website, Dan? Orange County Soccer Club?
It is. Oh yeah, orangecountysoccer.com. And like I say, even
Soccer.
you, Dylan, for $100, you can become an owner of our
I'm
club.
in. Listen, you sold me. That's the first thing. I'm going to get in before the new year. Before I got to get on the right side of the tax man with my new professional team ownership.
Love that. Thank you, Dylan.
All right, Dan. This has been Bootstrapping. I am Dylan Ratigan. More Tasty Live right after this.